We've all heard of the grandeur of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, three of the highest rated movies of all time, with all three making the top 12 of all time on IMDb's charts. The combined 11 hours and 36 minutes of runtime take viewers on the seemingly futile quest to destroy the One Ring. We've also all heard of The Hobbit, the precursor to The Lord of the Rings, a much shorter and more readable book, with a mere 8 hours and 52 minutes of footage in the movie. It's a travesty, and today I'll tell you why. Each page of The Lord of the Rings corresponds to about 38.4 seconds of movie. But given that a large parts of A Conspiracy Unmasked, The Old Forest, In the House of Tom Bombadil, Fog on the Barrow Downs, The Council of Elrond, and many more chapters are removed, it's probably a little more. The Hobbit, on the other hand, is 307 pages for 532 minutes of movie, an astounding 105 seconds of movie per page. The first movie of both trilogies start with a couple minutes of historical background information. The Lord of the Rings regarding the creation of the Rings of Power, no, not the canonically abominable Amazon series, the First War of the Ring, how Isildur and Smeagol/Gollum found and lost the ring, and how it ended up in the Shire. All canonically sound, but I think more importantly, it's presented as purely historical information, with a clearly ominous and dark tone and visual style, almost as a warning for what is to come. The beginning of The Hobbit, however, seems to me more like a bit of a fairy tale, like a letter, like a memoir, and a lot less ominous and less of a warning about dark evil. This is clear from the dialogue at the start of An Unexpected Journey.
My dear Frodo, you asked me once if I had told you everything there was to know about my adventures. And while I can honestly say I have told you the truth, I may not have told you all of it. I am old now, Frodo. I'm not the same Hobbit I once was.
But now to the main point. The Hobbit movies are simply not using screen time effectively, and let's look at why. People flocked to theaters across the world on December 6th, 2012 because of their love for the book, The Hobbit, and the movies of The Lord of the Rings. An example of what I would call an effective trilogy in terms of screen time use. It does this with adherence to the books, but also actually using screen time for that, as opposed to pure entertainment. While Lord of the Rings films aren't perfect with this, in my opinion, where many elements are actually removed to make them more watchable, it's still significantly better and improves the quality of the movie. Character addition and subtraction is something that The Lord of the Rings saves screen time on, while The Hobbit definitely adds. Now, I'm a hardcore book guy, so I'm mad that Tom Bombadil wasn't included, but it was a decent filmmaking choice nonetheless, because he adds absolutely nothing to the plot. While it's a lovely chapter and a vital bit of world building, a mystical guy named Tom Bombadil going around singing "Hey doll, Mary doll, ring-a-ding-dillo" over and over again and giving them food really doesn't move the plot forward at all. Sorry, I just had to say it. That does no justice to him at all, but it's a good summary. And to be fair, appropriately inserting Tom into the movie would have put it at least 10 minutes longer, bringing it ever closer to the terrifying 12-hour number. Someone else that's left out, which I'm also mad about, is Glorfindel. In the books, after the encounter with the Nazgul on Weathertop, Frodo is rescued by Glorfindel and brought back to Rivendell for saving. In the movies, however, he is rescued by Arwen, Aragorn's girlfriend, basically, which conveniently introduces her to viewers. This is way better for the flow of the movie. This also saves screen time, saving numerous character introductions and removing the need for one of them altogether, though I'd have loved to see it happen. The last two intertwined characters I'd like to mention who were removed are Fredegar Fatty Bulger and Farmer Maggot. In the literary work, they're together the only reason Frodo and Sam made it out of the Shire safely. They also use up plenty of time in the books. The dinner on Farmer Maggot's farm, the carriage ride, along with their brief stay in Crickhollow, are totally blotted out of the story in the films. I'd also like to give honorable mentions to the Barrow-wights, Baragond, Quickbeam, and Bill Ferny for being slashed out of the story when adapted for cinema completely. Now on to The Hobbit. Oh boy, is this gonna be fun. Characters added in The Hobbit are as follows. Legolas Greenleaf. I don't know whose idea that was. Putting Legolas in The Hobbit was a fun touch to bring back some bits of The Lord of the Rings, but really, really unnecessary. Tauriel. Why? I don't know. Maybe for diversity reasons. But then again, that's completely undone by making her big deal be a love triangle with an elf and a dwarf, which is ridiculous in the first place. And having the dwarf win is even more questionable. Okay. Next, we've got Thranduil. While he is, in fact, in the books, he's merely referred to as Elven King, and all he does is set up Bilbo to free the dwarves and state their miraculous escape down the river running, or the Kelduin, if you will. And he is a great player in the Battle of Five Armies later on, but aside from that, he's not important. Now for the big one. Azog the Defiler, the most terrible of orcs, is the main antagonist in The Hobbit. Now, I bet you could never guess how often he's mentioned in either the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit books. Well, a grand total of 1 time, in the start of The Hobbit when Gandalf reminds Thorin that Azog killed Thror in Moria. And while incorporating Azog into the Hobbit films as a main antagonist makes a total sense from a film and audience perspective, we spend so much time looking at his blue face that shouldn't even be in the film. He's definitely the greatest travesty of characters in the movie. Though Legolas and Tauriel follow closely behind, and honestly, I might be able to get behind Thranduil, but there's a big might. There's more specific details about these movies. There always are. But the use of characters corresponding to the books the films were based on, in my opinion, remains the most clear way to determine whether a film was stretched or squished. Based on what I found, I can reasonably conclude that The Hobbit, with its many extra characters and scenes I haven't even touched on, the choice of main characters in the Hobbit films undoubtedly extended them beyond necessity, though really it should have been a single 3-hour movie. Same goes for The Lord of the Rings. The characters who are removed and shuffled around were done just to save screen time, which is funny, right? So Peter Jackson, I love you, but the evidence is clear. Good characters make for a well-timed film, and The Hobbit did not do that.
Blunt the knives, bend the forks,
Smash the bottles and burn the corks.
tip the glasses and crack the plates. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates.